Alright, so in this video, I'm going to talk about how to forecast using exponential smoothing method and then how to calculate again the MSE or the mean squared error. Alright, so whenever I ask you to forecast using exponential smoothing method, I will give you a smoothing constant, aka alpha. Okay. Now, we are going to use the Excel's data analysis tool to do the exponential smoothing. So one thing to remember is that Excel does not take the smoothing constant or alpha. Instead, Excel takes something called the damping factor, which is 1 minus alpha. So the first step is to convert alpha to a damping factor. So the smoothing constant that I will give you is alpha. It's called smoothing constant or alpha, and that I give you at 0.3. Right? So I'm going to say conduct exponential smoothing where alpha equals to 0.3. Right? What Excel wants is called the damping factor, which is going to be 1 minus alpha. Right? So, which is going to be equals to 1 minus your alpha. The first step would be to calculate the damping factor from the smoothing constant. Okay. So once you have that, now let's pull up the Excel's data analysis tool. So you go to data and then click on data analysis. And then herein you would select exponential smoothing. All right, so now it's asking you for the input range, which means it's asking you about the data. So we're going to give the data. And then because I selected the level, right? I selected B1, which is the level. I'm going to click on levels. Now it's asking me what is the damping factor. So again, I did the damping factor. Because alpha equals to 0.3, my damping factor is going to be 0.7. And then it's asking you for output range, which means where do you want the forecast. Right? So I'm just going to select it and put it right here. And then click OK. That's it. So there you go. So there's your exponential smoothing forecast with alpha equals to 0.3. In class, we did alpha equals to 0.2, but I just wanted to show you a different example. All right. So now let's do the forecast errors and calculate the MSE. The next step is to calculate the forecast errors. So for the first one, so you see the first week could not be forecasted using the exponential smoothing method, right? So we're going to leave that out. For week 2, it's going to be original data minus the forecast. So similarly, you can just drag it down to fill all the forecast errors. Next thing, we're going to do squared forecast error because we are going to calculate the MSE, which is the mean squared error. So I'm going to just square my errors. All right. So then the last step is to calculate the MSE. And that is going to be, you're going to sum up all of your squared forecast errors. And you're going to divide that by number of weeks or number of periods, which is 12, right? You have 12 weeks data, minus number of periods that you could not forecast, right? Which is right here. The first period you could not forecast using the exponential smoothing method, which is why that number is going to be 1. It's going to be 12 minus 1. And there you go. So that is your MSE using exponential smoothing with alpha equals to 0.3. Right? Now, if I ask you to compare these two methods, the exponential smoothing method with alpha equals to 0.3 and a moving average method with k equals to 3, what you would do is you would look at the MSEs and you would say that a better method is the one which has a lower MSE. Okay? You're looking for a lower number of MSE or a lower error measure. So clearly in moving average has an MSE of 10.22, whereas the exponential smoothing has an average of 9.35. So clearly exponential smoothing has a lower MSE, which means this is a better method. So now if I ask you to predict for the next period cell, so let's say we have data for 1 to 12, right? And I want to know what's going to be my forecast or what's going to be my prediction for week 13, right? So because I think exponential smoothing with a better method, I'm gonna, if you ask me to predict after this, I'm gonna use the exponential smoothing method to predict, right? And all you need to do is just, at this point, Excel already has the formulas in, right? So you could just drag this down 1 point and that will give you the prediction. So the prediction for week 13 is gonna be 19.41. So week 13's prediction is going to be the best prediction, the best forecast you have right now is you're going to have 19.41 in sales in thousands of gallons. Okay. So this concludes the discussion for two methods for horizontal, for any time series data which has a horizontal pattern, moving average and an exponential smoothing.